Hey guys, I'm Uvas Ron of Convergence RFQ. Today we'll be speaking about beyond points and airdrops and the whole incentive meta. Perhaps we can start with a round of introductions, starting with Paul.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I'm part co-founder and CEO of Morpho Labs. We're building the Morpho protocol, so lending and borrowing infrastructure that is decentralized and permissionless. And we've been building for 2 years, 2.5 years now, and have over like $2 billion in deposits.
Antonio, CEO and founder of Spindl. We started as an attribution and measurement platform, and now we're a growth protocol for Web3.
Hello, everyone. This is Irene, the founder of Soko and Irene DAO. And I'm going to launch a new meme coin that was called Asianmom. So that's why I put it here. And I actually realized it's kind of embarrassing because I'm the only one who has a very weird title. But yeah, nice to be here.
Hey guys, I'm Chris, investor and advisor, and also core member at Curve, and Puffer, also investor in SynFutures. Glad to be here. Yeah.
So today let's start with our first question. So ever since the bear market started, points fatigue, points was a system developed, usually pioneered by several protocols. One particular, for example, in Solana called Margin-Fi. Since then, points fatigue has accrued, and it's pretty real at this point in time. Do you guys feel it's a temporary phenomenon, or that brought about by a sluggish market, or have the users mostly given up on this meta?
Right. So for me, this is definitely here to stay. I mean, incentives in general are like one of the most powerful tools that we have with tokenization in blockchain technology, like the ability to distribute ownership and incentivize certain behaviors in order to bootstrap like marketplaces, multi-sided markets, etc., is extremely, extremely powerful, right? And obviously we've been using it, in various ways. We've been experimenting, and obviously, when money is involved, like you can get people to do very stupid things. But I think over time it will rationalize and it will stay forever, as I believe is one of the most powerful tools that we have in crypto. Now, points specifically to me are just one of the main ways of incentivizing. I see really like 4 ways. Like you have airdrops, like saying, hey, we're going to do an airdrop, and you don't really know how or what are the terms, etc. And you just know that at some point an airdrop will come. So you use, but you don't know exactly what to do, right? Points are like more directed incentives, so we can direct you to like a specific behavior. And then you have non-transferable tokens and liquid tokens that we can talk about later. But I think incentives in general are here to stay. If points will survive, I don't know, but maybe non-transferable tokens will take over, or liquid tokens as incentives. But yeah, for sure, I believe we'll see that for the next years to come, but in a more rational way, I guess.
So yeah, my view on points. I think points are kind of like airdrops by another name in some sense, and people got kind of burned out by airdrops. Everyone knew they were getting farmed. So my initial view of it was pretty cynical and skeptical, but I'm actually from the Web2 marketing world and got kind of crypto pilled. And obviously points work in the Web2 world. Like I'm a United Premier 1K member. I don't even know why, because I get no upgrades, but I always choose United as the flight, and I'm totally loyal to it because obviously it's a points program. So I think there's analogs that work, but I think what you need to do is you need to measure and incentivize the right thing. And I think historically, like I said, Spindl started as a measurement platform. It's like a user comes in and does 6 things. Do you know why they came in and did 6 things? Do you know what the retention curves look like? Do you know what their ARPUs are? Like when we first started building Spindl and started talking to growth marketers, they had no idea what an ARPU was. I'd have to define it in calls, right? Which is crazy when you think about that for Web3. But I think the conversation has definitely changed, and people are a lot smarter about it. And tools like Spindl and other tools help you actually measure the correct user behavior and incentivize that. So yeah, I would bet on points existing, but I think being a lot smarter and more like loyalty points at your grocery store or your airline or whatever.
Yeah, I think they will still exist because like points and airdrops are like the unpredictability. And I think the users really likes that unpredictability. I mean, if you tell them what they are gonna get by farming all these points, they would be incentivized, but they wouldn't be that incentivized. But it's because of the unpredictability, because you don't know what the project's gonna give you, and you don't know what you can gain by completing all these tasks. And you have this like expectation that, oh, I'm going to get all these like airdrops, and these airdrops gonna worth this much in the future. And that's like how projects use these things as like incentives to actually kind of like keep getting the users to try on the new protocols. And I think that's probably one of the best ways for the new protocols to get a lot of users. But I think in the long term, like after people really get the airdrops and actually they sell it, whether the protocol can still have like long-term effect or have like long-term incentives to keep the users there is like a question. And I think a lot of like nowadays the L2s are losing a lot of users after the users got airdropped. I think it's a big problem in the industry right now. But I think it will still exist as long as the project knows the best way to farm all these users to get airdrops.
Yeah, I mean, I think points will definitely stay. If I think about, over the years I've kind of helped multiple project design their tokenomic. And if you think about back in the days when Wiring came out, right, you have to go through Balancer, then go to Curve, get this, Wi-Fi token, go snapshot, and you get the token directly, right? So everything is somehow intertwined in a way that whatever action you do, you get this. By the time it's kind of like, there's only, I think, one Medium post that kind of really guide you on how to do that, and everyone else don't really know how to do it. And then there's the next phase, right, where there are multiple projects, Scroll, Layer 0, ZK Sync, and everyone kind of have to have this hope that whatever they do could potentially become an airdrop. Right, and then last year, Athena, Puffer, Swell, EtherFi, Pendle came out these more visualized way, which is exactly the same end result, right? You're looking to get an airdrop, but with points, you kind of have a better understanding, right? How, like, what you're getting, and that's for the user side of stuff. And for founder, it also helped them to have more metric. If you think about like 4 years ago during DeFi Summer, most of the time you kind of just hope that whatever token design, if it's 100 million token or a billion token or doesn't matter how much, you don't really have much insight of your user base because it hasn't really organically grow. And then, for example, like all the LRT right now, the ones that haven't launched token yet, they can kind of understand like these are the major stakeholder. For example, okay, Justin Sun deposit 200 mil here. I know he's the big one. Then there's like 3 other guys that deposit 50 mil. Then I kind of understand like how the token design should be designed rather than YOLO, right? So I think point system will continue. It's tired for most people because before point system, it was even more vague. You're hoping to get something, and then with less promising. So now because there is points, everyone believe that there will soon be a token. So I get short answers. I do think points will continue to stay.
Add to that, yes, there are several syndicates participating in points right now, contributing to TVL to various protocols, from Ethereum to Rust-based protocols to Move-based protocols. To add to that, industrial scale airdrop farming has become a major problem. We saw different projects trying to combat it with mixed results. What is the way forward in dealing with this new phenomenon? Maybe we can start with you, Mr.Block.
I mean, in terms of scaling the airdrop, right? I guess it kind of goes back to the same first question as well, where you kind of have to find that balance between how long the airdrop season 1 should be like and at what point. And at the same time, I think the founder is also having a hard time because they want to time it correctly. One is, I guess, the bull market, right? So when do you want to release the token? And then thirdly, they have pressure from all these whales that deposit so much TVL, and they are also pressing to the founder, right? Saying, when are you going to launch your token? Because if they withdraw, then they lose their points. And then there's also like other rule where founders are putting higher vesting schedule onto the whales that are farming 10% of airdrop, for example. So there are multiple stakeholders here to figure out how to balance it. And I think that's also something that you don't really see people talk about that much on Twitter. And it's a real question most pre-TG project are thinking the most. And it's the balance, right? We're starting to see new ways to do it. If we look at some of the recent projects on Binance, such as Dog and all these sort of semi-meme coin on Ton, they sort of do this way that they give all the unlocks at once and try to create this organic evangelist way. And at the end of the day, it's figuring out the price discovery. And for DeFi project, they tend to hold down majority of the token for a longer farming period. And I think new DeFi projects are also trying to learn from the old one. And Curve were probably one of the few that continue to, that you can still farm it. And most have pretty much finished farming for 2 years. And that's because during that time in 2020, people were planning to say, okay, 2 year finish farming and somehow create this organic way and then somehow has some new incentive building on top of it. So yeah, I don't think there's a right answer to this question, how to scale it correctly. I think the ultimate token design that most people want to become is kind of between utility and meme. I know that might sound weird, but that's how I look at, for example, Uniswap, right? Uni token, it's kind of a meme token in a way. You can't really use it, but you can also use it. I don't know if any one of you have ever tried to vote with Uni token before. You can't really do much with it, right? Because you have to be holding a bunch of token. But for example, if you hold VCRV, you can participate in the bribery, you can earn, you can still do that these days. I think there's over $320 million that's been bribed on Curve for the past 2.5 years. That's pretty much the only protocol that has successfully done that, not using their own token as incentive and having that outside stakeholder. That's kind of a crucial part, right, when you create any DeFi protocol, is to find those different stakeholders. And for Curve, it was finding stablecoin, right? Frax, they wanted to create a stablecoin. They want to have a healthy pool on Curve. Then they take whatever Frax token or stablecoin to bribe VCRV holder to vote for that pool. So then that pool would have more incentive, and then more people are willing to go in. I think we had for example, Luna. Luna was the biggest briber on Curve as well with UST. They wanted to build that USD pool. So that's kind of finding that outside stakeholder that are also interested in participating in the governance. Yeah, so again, I think to scale this, you really have to find that utility between it. At Puffer, we're also trying to do something similar with AVSs and having AVSs to participate in the bribe market, to bribe, for example, the Puffer governance token holder, to then decide where it goes. Yeah.
Yes, Irene.
Okay, I think I'll talk more from airdrop perspective because we are launching a new meme coin right now, and I think for meme coin the most of incentives or the best way to really get a lot of attention pre-launch is probably airdrop. So I think on my tweets I usually tweet things about airdrop. I think the mindset is you should have zero expectations of how much you're gonna get from this airdrop, because for airdrop it's more like a gift from the project to the users who are an early participant or they have been following the project long enough. So I think if you frame airdrop as a gift and there is no expectations, I think that's a better way for people to engage with the meme coin communities. And I also think there are a lot of very interesting ways for people to distribute airdrops to a lot of participants. For example, you can come up with a tweet that says, oh, who interact ever with this tweet or leave an address. You can get this kind of airdrops. And how we actually decide who get airdrop is we use the Twitter algorithm to gauge who have the most close relationship with the people who post the tweet, or with a lot of key opinion leaders in the industry. And from that, we can come up with a very whole list and very thorough list of the CT participants to actually receive the airdrops. And also, you can interact with all the meme coins in the for example, if you are Solana or if you are Ton or if you are TRX, you can airdrop the meme coins to those prominent or very active airdrop meme coin communities, so that all the meme coin communities, they received airdrop when you launch the meme coins. I think it's a very good way to form a very strong community even before you launch the project. And also, I think another way is for people to come up with memes or tweet content about your meme coins on Twitter to raise a lot of awareness about the project. I think all these are very interesting ways you can do, and people will find it very incentivized to do it as well.
What do you think, Antonio? Or
I don't know, maybe it sounds kind of trolly, but one idea is building a product people actually want to use. And in some sense, you reward the power users of that product with sort of incentivized behavior that keeps them loyal to the product. That's
Paul?
Yeah, so I think I'll join Anthony and tokens, like the way I think about tokens in general is really like, for some projects, not for all, but is equity 2.0. Like equity is used to raise capital and early contributors, and tokens are a way to raise capital, contributors, and users, right? And so obviously you don't want to just buy users for a finite period of time, and when you stop buying them, they just all go away. Like this literally does not make sense. However, what you can do is like with protocols that require network effects to work. So like you have some kind of a cold start problem where you need to bring like the supply side and the demand side to actually make things work together. Where there it makes sense to actually use your your token equity like in order to bootstrap the network. So I think and again, like not all projects have like the same vision on tokens. Like for example, we're talking about Uniswap. To me, it's completely fine that the Uniswap token does not have any utility. Like I mean, you don't ask a company what's the use of their equity, right? What's the utility of your equity? Well, it's equity, right? Like, and so okay, in the case Uniswap is a network, so it's not exactly equity. It's like network equity. And the token is really here to bootstrap Uniswap's community. It's also used as incentives to bootstrap like Uniswap markets when they deploy new chains, etc. Right? But also I acknowledge like some projects have different visions, and the sustainability comes from the usage, like with bribes, as mentioned on Curve. But yeah, so I guess that the answer is sort of like depends on like what's the vision for the token essentially.
So talking about Uniswap, the revenue fee share switch has yet to be turned on. Do you guys think SEC and regulatory risk are the main reasons why this fee switch hasn't been turned on? Or do you guys believe it's something more value intrinsic, where maybe do you guys believe turning on, even doing revenue sharing at a protocol basis brings positive price impact on the token itself? Maybe we can start with you, Paul.
So I don't know the exact answer to the question, but my take is that obviously regulatory risk is present, and the SEC has effectively been investigating a ton of projects, and many of them are actually not public, right? So there is definitely a risk. Founders should be very, very careful, and obviously taking fees is a risk, not just from a regulatory perspective, but also there is the question of taxes, like who should be paying taxes, where is the project registered, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I'm not in the Uniswap DAO. I don't take part in the conversations, but I'm assuming this, is one of the big questions they are working on to answer in order to activate the fee switch. And if you want to do this in a neat way, right? Maybe it's worth taking the time. And I believe, like from the DAO members I know, they are super long-term oriented and really looking to make Uniswap a very strong network that gets adopted in like among institutionals, and maybe this is what they're waiting. But I don't know the true answer, to be completely honest.
Antonio.
I would just agree with Paul, right? I mean, if you're getting a rev share on swaps fees, it's participation in the efforts of others, which is almost the definition of a security. And so the reason why they're avoiding is because they got a Wells notice. I mean, who are we kidding?
Right, and I'd say the most important thing for Uniswap, in order to activate the fee switch in a sort of like SEC compliant way, is to prove that the value creation is actually decentralized, and that anyone is able to actually anticipate what's going to be the value generated by the Uniswap protocol. That it's not through Uniswap Labs, but it's more like the actual state of the protocol, how much liquidity is there in there, so that anyone can actually look at the protocol, look at the states, look at the trading flows, and can anticipate the value of the token. This way you don't have asymmetric, and this is what SEC is essentially looking at, like how are those trades asymmetric, right? So as soon as Uniswap has actual decentralized value creation, then maybe it makes more sense from a regulatory perspective to activate the fee switch.
Irene? Or Chris?
Sure. I mean, I guess I don't really know the answer to that, but for Curve, we did have a rev share with VCRV, and I think like what Paul Antonio said, right? If you do rev share, in many ways it is security, but I think Ethereum in a way it's also doing rev share, just not in USD. Same for Curve, right? That Ethereum does in ETH. You not only get in validator rewards, you also get tipping. I think, especially right now with Eigenlayer and Symbiotic, you're probably, as a validator, you're going to get a lot more rewards, right? It's all based in ETH. In Curve, we also, share in multiple type of token, not in stablecoin. And it comes down to how decentralized the product is, right? If, let's say, any other government official wants to close Ethereum switch, can they close it? If they cannot, then can it be counted as a security? Can someone close Curve's fee switch? Yes, if they bought a bunch of CRV, lock it down, and then go on chain to close it, right? So I think it really comes down to which protocol are going to become that pioneer. And right now, it's most likely going to be Uniswap, right? To really fight and figure the answer out. And I encourage everyone to kind of study the case as well, and support somehow, because it's really important in DeFi, and at the end of the day, these law needs to be fought in order to have some sort of answer, to have like some sort of case that then can be used as an example for future DeFi project. Yeah.
In recent months, there has been a clamor for bringing ICOs back. Do you feel that's likely to happen, or does the regulation risk make such a comeback impossible? What do you think, Paul?
I have no idea.
Depends who wins in November.
Irene?
Yeah.
Are you saying like ICO is back, or like?
Yes.
Has it
No
ever?
sales.
Was it ever gone? I mean, I think there are just different versions of ICO, right? There were NFT sell, there were node sell, there were LBP, Balancer does it. There were new type of cells, right? So I think it has always been around, has never gone. So, and yeah, it's like having multiple people do it. So I don't think it's gone. Yeah.
One more question. Farming the farmers has been used to describe some of the points program. It has been morally questioned several times. Is it real? And if a farmer is using a project only for the airdrop, doesn't care to stick around the protocol, there's no such thing as long-term viability for the protocol. Is it okay for a project to farm them instead? There's a lot of mercenary capital around, especially and a lot of incentives for a lot of these protocols, giving out some form of incentive to some of these syndicates. What's your take on that? Starting with Paul.
I'm not sure I got the question, actually. So you're saying that, is it, yeah, can you just... Or maybe if someone got it, no.
Oh, I think his question was like, does protocol should farm the farmer? Like, should you?
Right. So I guess, so coming back to my initial points on like the different ways to give incentives to people, you have different levels of transparency that you can give to the community as a founder. So you have the sentence, we're doing an airdrop, go use the protocol in some way, and in 6 months we'll decide of a rule, and you don't know, what action to take, and we'll essentially tell you eventually what's the amount and what was the action to take. Then you have points where essentially we tell you what are the actions to take, but we don't tell you what's the amount you're going to have, right? The third option is non-transferable token, which is the option we've done with Morpho, and that has worked, in my opinion, incredibly well, which is essentially we're giving you tokens. They're not transferable, right? So the token is not live, but you know exactly what you're going to get, right? So we tell you which action you should you should do in the protocol in order to bootstrap it. So in our case, that was lending and borrowing. And you know exactly what share of ownership you're getting from this interaction, right? And then the final, possibility is essentially doing the same thing with transferable tokens. So you essentially give cash to people, right? And I believe, the founder have the ability to choose between how much transparency they want to give to the farmer in order to, essentially farm the farmers, or deciding, to be a bit fairer with the users. In our case, we decided to show exactly how much of ownership users are going to get in order to attract only farmers that were, at least a little bit convicted in like the projects. And so it turns out like all the early users we got on Morpho turned into like long-term power users, right? And so yeah, like if you rely on points, you don't know what you're gonna get. If you have non-transferable token, well, so you can't be farmed, right, quote unquote.
What do you think, Antonio?
You know so much more about airdrops. I'll pass to somebody else.
I think it's a very interesting question, because actually in China, there are like specific agencies. They hire people. All they do is to farm points. So that's the only job they do, to be a farmer. And like one company, they have like 10 people, and they probably have like 4,000, 5,000 accounts just to farm the airdrops. And actually, there's a lot of KOLs who write long essays to tell people the specific steps to farm the airdrops. And after the airdrop were distributed, they will write long reflections, so what went wrong and what went right. So I think it's like probably a little bit too optimistic for projects to think that they farm the farmers, because all these farmers are getting more and more like clever. So they are also getting better and like farming these airdrops. They will waive the pros and the cons. They'll waive the cost, because all these agencies who actually lost money by farming the airdrops, they will just bankrupt or shut down. So the remaining ones are very smarter ones. So I think both the projects and the farmers are getting better, and I think we're gonna see like a much interesting mechanism along the way.
Yeah, I think for the longest time, there has always been project farming the farmer, right? Doesn't matter what type of agency, because at the end of the day, the project get to decide the rule. And I think, we've seen that in Optimism airdrop, Arbitrum airdrop, the ways to kind of battle Sybil attack and to figure out like who are actually participating. And I think there are many ways to battle it, right? Because usually these type of agency, they focus on the social mission. So many projects in the beginning to bootstrap, they'll do, for example, follow Twitter, do this and that, and you get some sort of points. And then you'll see like 500,000 participate into it. And then the next chapter would be, for example, lending, right? Go to Morpho, deposit something and lend. Then you can kind of understand like, okay, these farmers are not actually depositing. Then you can set another rule on top of it, right? For example, you want a minimum deposit of 0.1 ETH. Then it becomes a higher cost for the farming agency to figure out. And I do think farming agency makes sense too. I mean, I've seen probably 20 different liquid funds fundraising on these. So it's not just in China, it's in everywhere around the world. There are many liquid strategy that focusing on the airdrops. And a lot of these liquid funds are advisor in multiple projects as well, trying to make the system better. So I think it's a flywheel effect of having like different participants, and again, it's figuring out that balance, right? You have these professional farmers, you have regular retail farmer. We're no longer in that DeFi summer where it's like you come in, every protocol or benchmark are getting so high. LRT benchmark are like 3 or 5 billions, right? If you're anything below that, most people don't look at it, right? So I think the industry has grown to a size that you have to rely on multiple parties and then find a balance between them. Yeah.
Let me just raise a random comment. It's funny that farming is even possible, right? Because I can't farm my airline loyalty program, right? And like get more value than I put into United. Like, and this is kind of what got me into measurement and crypto to begin with. A properly designed point system shouldn't be farmable, right? In the sense that like the farmer has to be suicidal in order to, or like not actually, like it shouldn't be possible to have ROI positive farming of a well-designed points program. Sorry, like it's kind of crazy that this is even a thing. I mean, obviously it's rational in the sense that if the token pops more than you lose in the farming, it's net positive to the protocol. So in that sense, it's rational, but yeah, it doesn't feel real in the way that a real product wouldn't behave that way or a real business wouldn't behave that way.
It's a very costly customer acquisition cost, in a sense. Will you agree?
Yeah, and you know, coming back to your point, like usually it's like proportional to the amount of capital that you put in. Like obviously, like there are some kind of point system that are not Sybil resistant, meaning that if you create 10 times more accounts, you could get 10 times more points. But you know, Sybil resistance can come just for requiring the farmer to deposit some money and, you know, give the incentive proportional to the amount of capital that is provided, which makes it like, you know, unfarmable, like unstupidly farmable in some way. And so like coming back to your point, like you could really see this as either customer acquisition costs, but also, in my opinion, an even better word is like bootstrapping costs, essentially, in order to get the well going. Just to give you an example, you know, in Morpho, it's a lending and borrowing protocol. So we bring together lenders and borrowers. Borrowers don't come if you don't have the lender. Lenders don't come if you don't have interest paid by borrowers. So what you do is, like, when you create a new market, you start by giving incentives. Lenders come, borrowers come artificially, but then you can finally show a working product to like lenders and borrowers and say, hey, like, you know, this thing is working. You can provide capital and earn interest. And only once you have organic users on both sides, you can remove incentives and you've successfully bootstrapped a protocol. And the amount of incentive that you've given is essentially your bootstrapping cost, right? But, you know, in other designs, it can be used as, you know, essentially used to grow and not to bootstrap. And in that case, that would be like, a CAC essentially.
Any last comments for our panelists? I think we're at time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome.